Consider this possibility. Everyone on the world of Teyvat, except the travelers, are already dead. Why? Because Teyvat is an illusion generated by the Genesis Pearl, which is Irminsul's light source and the fake moon in the sky. The game is pointless, and the traveler's journey to save everyone is a fool's errand. Not a nice prospect, is it? Perhaps you even feel a bit put off by the idea. This is the essence of forbidden knowledge, a paradoxical truth that the inhabitants of Teyvat cannot understand. This is the Unlikely Genshin Gamer, and now that I have your attention, allow me to gently point out why it is all but proven that an eclipse caused the cataclysm, how the Aranara quest basically spoiled one of the biggest mysteries of the game, and why Irminsul had to be protected at all costs. At the moment, most of the lore community is having a field day with the treasure trove of information in the book Perinheri. But it by itself isn't the real treasure yet. You see, Hoyoverse is an expert at giving us information long before we can effectively use it. Perinheri will become much clearer in a short while, but it led me to realize a plethora of things that we were told in the Sumeru chapter. Every single thing we were given, from the books to the artifact sets to the Sub-Zero's Festival Samsara and the Aranara quests especially, were made relevant again, and the wealth of information is staggering now that it can be better understood. There is so much to unpack, I'll have to be careful about explaining this, so I'll start with the root of everything. Irminsul is a tree, as we all know. The world tree, as it were, in more ways than one. And according to Tainari, it grows downward instead of up, with the parts we encounter up on the surface being the roots, also known as the ley lines. Little by little, we have been spoon-fed info on the inner workings of Irminsul and how it relates to the elements. And what we've learned is that the entire reality of Teyvat is encoded by Irminsul through the elements. Each one alone takes care of some aspect of the world, and together make up reality. This is what we know so far. Fontaine taught us that Hydro is overwhelmingly responsible for storing emotions in Irminsul. The Aqua Dolores, which means water of sorrows, is a hyper-concentrated unit of dark emotions. The rain in Fontaine conveys emotions directly to Neuvillette, the most sensitive Hydro creature there is. The traveler could hear Farina's tears in the water of the Fountain of Lucine, and Neuvillette explained that all emotions run through that fountain, and he can sense them. The higher your affinity for Hydro, the clearer the emotions. Dendro was directly stated to constitute knowledge. Alhaitham actually pointed out in the Archon quest that the higher the quality of the knowledge in a canned knowledge capsule, the brighter its Dendro output if viewed with elemental sight. When scholars wanted to upload things they had learned into the repository that was the Akasha, the richer the amount of knowledge they extracted, the more sheer Dendro was used. Dendro also represents dreams, but this concept is very central to the theory I presented at the beginning, so I'll have to return to that after a moment. Next, we have wind, which has been heavily implied to constitute time. The passing of air from one point to another is seen as the manifestation of time, and Venti is one of the winds of the shade of time. The winds of time is a phrase used very often throughout the game. Electro is almost certainly energy, and an interesting clue to these assumptions is the effects the leyline disorders or team resonances provide based on the various elements. Elemental mastery for Dendro, meaning more knowledge and wisdom to use the elements. Animo always increases movement speed. Electro leyline anomalies usually increase energy absorption. Geo, Pyro, and Cryo are a bit harder though. But I believe the Geo element actually represents gold, as Zhongli's status as Deus Ari, god of gold, implies. And the Geo element is not brown as would be expected of an earth element. It's always represented in a golden color. Plus, gold was also known as the perfect example of matter in alchemy, and almost completely resistant to erosion. Maybe that's why Zhongli is so old. For this reason, I think the Geo element is responsible for the expression of matter in the Irminsul system. Then, perhaps the Geo resonance of improved shield strength would make sense. But what about Pyro and Cryo? These ones still elude me, but for Pyro at least, I believe it could represent destruction, not death, but the breaking down of things to create something new. I invite you all to tell me what you think. Either way, the whole world runs on these elements and their characteristics, these primordial ones that remained after all secondary ones were absorbed in the Archon War. The ley lines themselves, which run all around just beneath the surface, exude these characteristics among other energies from the elements and literally create the environment as it appears in Teyvat. That's why the breaking down of Irminsul in the form of the withering degrades everything about the spot where it appears. The ground, the air, the water, people's health, and their minds just degrade in the presence of that corruption. We saw the power of Irminsul when Rukkadevata was erased. Her actions were not undone, but every piece of information, everyone's memories, and most suspiciously, even books written in the past were changed. That means Irminsul controls the very thoughts of the humans in the world, and the ink on the pages of the books written hundreds of years ago was simply altered. It is the very heart of Teyvat. Sumeru and the Archon of Dendro are the keepers of Irminsul. The health of the entire system depends on them. The Dendro Archon has admin rights to a certain degree and is its protector. That's the reason Rukkadevata was instructed to protect Irminsul rather than fight in Conria during the Cataclysm. It's because of its status as the actual fabric of the world. To put this another way, the world of Teyvat is the vision of the tree. It's not real, and if the tree were to die, the illusion or dream would be broken. That's why it can loop. That's why there is a world formula, as the Conrians discovered. That's why you can revitalize some of its roots and literally receive solid, tangible duplicates of ancient artifacts lost to history, or relive past battles over and over again. Nahida clued us into the idea that the world itself is not what it seems when she was guiding us through the Sub-Zero's festival Samsara. Listen to this.
Oh no! Everything in this world runs in a loop. This cycle is called the Samsara. You, me, and everyone else are all stuck inside the one-day Samsara.
And the description for the Sumeru Quest Act when Dotori imprisons Nahida is even more direct. The world as it is, and all that is in it, it is but a dream, empty and full of lies. What a curious line. The world is but lies and illusions sounds like something the Abyss Twin and their cohorts would say. And yet, this theme is repeated throughout Sumeru, the land closest in relationship to Irminsul, and was hinted at in the Narcissan Crew's quest lines in Fontaine. Narcissan Crews realized that those whose will could become powerful enough to influence Irminsul could alter the world to some degree by sheer force of that will. His goal had been to acquire such a will, yet avoid the limitations set by the heavenly principles in the form of a vision, by stealing the wills of others and pooling them into one. Then he could have reimagined Teyvat into existence after the vision of destruction he saw came to pass. Deshret had a similar idea of unified power of will with the Golden Slumber. In the description of the king's squire bow, the Tiger King of the forest, whom Rukkadevata had appointed to guard it, informs a small child who had innocently wandered into the forest that the world is not completely real. Remember, this whole world is but a dream of the forest. One day you shall awake from your reality and find your place in this boundless hunting ground. Where our prey head without fail, we shall arrive at one day as well. Always keep that in mind. The Aranara's cryptic messages constantly spoke of dreams that constituted reality as well. But this raises an even greater question. What is the dream hiding? What is the truth that the Abyss so badly wants us to know? This is where the Aranara quest was critical, as they described what they saw as the dream began to break down back during the disaster. The forest didn't know death until a day came when the trees realized that withered flowers and dead animals covered the earth. On the same day, the earth remembered the dark, poisonous blood it had once devoured or was about to devour. The rivers thought of the descent of the sun, evaporating all water and leaving a red world behind. They realized that all things would meet their end, and so Marana was born. It is the name of death, and those who know it shall die. Marana urges everything towards death. As for the tall, dark, and warped beings, they are the avatars chosen by Marana, the heralds of death. Another Aranara informs us that Marana is the memory of death. Apep was tormented by this vision of the truth as well, till the day the promise between it and the Lord of Sands was finally attained, with ultimate wisdom claimed. Henceforth, it reaped only sights of oblivion, of an endless calamity. Apep found itself swallowed alone amidst the scenes of the catastrophe. All the people, gods, dragons, beasts, birds, and fish, all memories, wisdom, words, and hatred were ground into colorless dust, and the last of the moonlight burned away into a rain of pale fire, falling on the barren land. This was the product of the forbidden knowledge that King Deshret had passed on to Apep after his death. Every time the dream is broken down, what is seen is a barren, dead land devoid of life, where not even resilient mint can grow. Denizens of the Abyss, who so fondly shepherd everyone towards death, constantly preach of this emptiness as truth. Is this the truth of this world that the traveler's sibling insists they will learn at the end of their journey? What if that is why they are so callous with the lives of the people in Teyvat, who stand to be hurt by the schemes they engage in with the Abyss? Conria seems to be their only concern, and I'm inclined to believe that that nation, facing the real sky, who had to use alchemy for all their sustenance, insisted to live underground rather than capitulate to the aliens and join the illusion. Perhaps it is the only truly habitable part of the world. But now that I have touched on the topic of the false sky, it's time to explain why I think the moon has been the Genesis Pearl all along. During the Cataclysm, all throughout the world, as Irminsul was falling apart, the sustainer of this reality, the knowledge of the true state of this planet was becoming evident, and it seems like the reason for this breakdown in the integrity of Irminsul was due in part to a disruption in its light source. All trees need some form of light to grow, and an Aranara from the Motima forest, the catalyst, fruit of fulfillment, and this book from the academia that chronicles the dark disaster all suggest that this light was from the moon. Folio of foliage. When the moon's shadow shattered, hordes of beasts emerged from the deepest depths of the abyss and devoured living creatures by the thousands. Under that sneering, waning moon, the black tide of decay surged over the deserts and through the valleys, turning clear springs once interlaced with roses into puddles of filth, defiling the earth as mortals trembled with despair. The root cause of the blight still lay beneath the earth, and the shadow of death continued to obscure the once luminous moonlight. Fruit of fulfillment. In truth, the moon did not always look like a pearl. Once upon a time, the moon turned into the shape of fangs that smirked ferociously. Moonlight no longer waltzed through the leaves to cast itself on the grass, turning the dew into glimmering pearls. Trees were thrust down to the ground like wheat, overwhelmed by strong winds. Every inch of the land was swamped by grief. The grief was so formidably immense and intense that even the streams were fraught with the pungent odor of salt and iron. And an Aranara. But after many, many more moons, Morana came out of the moon's shadows and devoured Matima. Also, back again in the Sub-Zero's festival Samsara, hints about the moon and its supporting or signifying an illusion appeared again.
It's extremely difficult for lab rats in an experiment to understand why they're being treated the way they are.
If we're lab rats, then what are you? Nahida, you've never told us anything about yourself.
I guess I'm the moon.
The moon? Wasn't that the result of our divination?
The moon, illusions, and lies. What do they all mean?
The references about the moon's importance are actually everywhere. Thus did the bright moon reflect the patterns of light from the labyrinth upon the water, and from this was the tiger born.
Sees the pointer and misses the moon.
What does that mean?
If you point at the moon with your finger, a wise man knows that you are pointing at the moon, while a fool will only see the finger.
So knowledge from Irminsul can be super dangerous. Aren't you afraid of the risks, Hypatia?
Of course I do. Especially during nights that are pitch black with no moonlight, and dead silent without even the sound of insects.
Mondstadt means moon city in German. Liyue means gilded moon in Chinese. Ai-Khanum, Deshret's great city, meant city of the moon maiden in the ancient language of the Jinn. Oceanids were said to be able to learn intelligence from staring at the moon's reflection in the water. The Fountain of Lucine loosely translates to Fountain of Moonlight. Also, the Mistress of Flowers, Nabu Malikata, Deshret's love and Rukkadevata's friend, was a moon maiden, and her power was that of the Kavrina, a force known to be a match for the might of the abyss and stronger than that of the elements. She shared this with Rukkadevata the night before she acquiesced to Deshret's constant requests for the secrets of the sky. The power of the three mothers of life, Rukkadevata, Egeria, and Nabu Malikata, is what was required to push back the horrors of the forbidden truth. And Nabu Malikata's power of the moon was most important. Still, none of them survived it. That round white moon, so often described as a pearl, is somehow, throughout the world, connected to the creation of something new from nothing. An Atra's sun befell its kingdom, and a luminous pearl lost its glow. Nivea's silk grew dim, and wheaten gold burned brightly no more. So begins another tale that occurred in the lost Conria kingdom. Perhaps this is also the beginning of the tale of the corruption of the Genesis Pearl. the luminous pearl that lost its glow. Which means it can be safely said that the moon over the skies of Teyvat isn't the real one. Everyone has noticed that as you approach the highest point in the spiral abyss, the moon grows brighter and larger to the point where it finally looks close enough to touch. And the moment of syzygy that happens every 2 weeks is the moment when the 3 celestial bodies line up to create either new moon or full moon. But the moon in the sky that the people of Teyvat know doesn't have phases. According to Sucrose, it's always full. It's probably not real. Instead, when the Crimson Dynasty took back the kingdom of Conria, as Perinheri implies, the abyssal moon was obscured. Which means that's the real moon. That crimson moon was the sneering moon everyone saw that was blocking Irminsul's vital light. They say the spiral abyss descends downward, but obviously this is the real sky. This is the sky facing Conria. This is the sky that the ancient Conrians looked to provide them with a transcendent person, a descender to overthrow the rule of the heavenly principles. Until perhaps they grew impatient and worked to pull one in. This must be the summoning that Scaramouche spoke of. Something went wrong, and the plan to transcend the heavenly principles ended in tragedy for the entire nation. The Eclipse dynasty fell, the pure-blood Conrians were cursed, and the Teyvat people who tried to return to the surface were rewritten by the Irminsul system into hilichurls. Every time we get another lore drop, older ones start making sense. And I think that's some of the most fun to be had when crafting theories about the lore. Even if this theory doesn't prove to be true, I think we're on the right track. After all, didn't Focalors and Kaya of all people also mention that something about Teyvat is the imagination of someone else? Even Caterpillar, Narcissan Cruise's unwilling disciple, hinted at the power of dreaming other beings into existence. I said it before in the very first video I ever made. Hoyoverse is doing something sneaky with travelers, the players, and the fourth wall. So now, it's time for discussion. I want to hear all about your thoughts and theories. After all, it is the pooling of random tidbits of lore all over the community that helps us find all the references that lead to these theories. So, I want to hear your takes. As always, thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed so I can grow. And I'll see you in the next one.